Council come to order. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United
States
of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Mandy, could you please call the roll?
DeYoung.
Here.
Danstra.
Here.
Hopkins.
Here.
Spore. Here. And Brandenburg Stinsky got our absent.
Okay. For those of you attending via the telephone, you will be able to provide verbal comments during the dedicated public forums. I would ask that you please keep your microphones or telephones on mute until you are ready to speak. That's important. I think we already had some feedback, so make sure you mute your device if you're not talking. Before we get started tonight, I want to give a little recognition to Mike. Today is his 20th anniversary of being with the city. So I've had the opportunity to work with Mike now for almost 2 years. We see a lot of each other, a lot of meetings, and Mike does a wonderful job for the City of Pella. He's good at a lot of things, but if you want to start talking numbers with him, that's where he really excels. So him and I are both numbers guys, so you can imagine some of our conversations were kind of boring for anybody else, but we have a lot of fun. So congratulations, 20 years. I don't know if you'll make it another 20, but we start a new streak. All right. Can I get a motion for approval of the tentative agenda?
So moved.
Master Spore, any discussion? Okay, all in favor, please say yes. Opposed, no. Mandy, please call the roll.
Danstra.
Yes.
Spore. Yes. DeYoung.
Yes.
Hopkins.
Yes. Motion passed. Okay, at this time, we have an opportunity for anyone wishing to address the council regarding any agenda item. If you do that, please come to the microphone, state your name and address, and try to limit your comments to 3 minutes. Okay, seeing none, we'll move on. Can I get a motion for approval of the consent agenda?
So moved. Support.
DeYoung, Banster, any discussion? Okay, all in favor, please say yes. Opposed, no. Mandy, please call the roll.
DeYoung.
Yes.
Danstra.
Yes.
Hopkins.
Yes.
Spore. Yes.
Motion passed. So at this time, I imagine Jill is going to introduce our new Convention and Visitors Bureau Director, Ann Frost.
Do you want me to come up?
Yeah, sure.
I'm making her come with me.
Yeah.
I'm just going to stand here with this.
Yeah, that's fine.
So many of you have already met Ann. She's been at some of the forums and that type of thing. You've already been introduced to Ann. Ann Frost will be your new Convention and Visitors Bureau / Visit Pella Director. She started on the 25th. I'll step away from my role on December 10 after 16 years in this position and 31 years in the travel industry here in Pella. I'll be leaving it in great hands. I've known Ann for a number of years, and we're in serious training right now, but I just wanted to introduce her and just let you know that she'll be doing a great job for the community in marketing for tourism. So welcome to Ann.
Thanks, Jill, and welcome, Ann. Look forward to working with you. I think we've told Jill thank you 3 or 4 times, but we certainly do appreciate all the effort that you put in for the years that you were part of it, and did a great job. So enjoy retirement. All right, moving on to resolutions. There are resolution number 6354 entitled Resolution Approving an Agreement with Shift Collective LLC to update the design guidelines manual from 3rd edition to 4th edition. Mike?
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. I'd be happy to explain this item. And for those following at home, I'm on slide number 3 this evening. As Mayor DeWard stated, what we're entertaining this evening is a proposed contract with Shift Collective. And specifically what we're looking to do with the contract is update the city's design manual. It's important to note it has been a number of years since the design manual has been updated. But when we look at the design manual, with this. We've been talking about this with the members of the Community Development Committee for some time. And in his background, council did form a subcommittee in May of this year to address this issue. And we do have up here under the fourth bullet point a little bit about the committee members that we have as well. And actually, when we look at the design manual, it is important to note that it's been over a decade since it has been updated. Now, Mandy, let's go ahead, please, to the next slide. Now, when we look at the contract, what we're looking at, really, we're trying to accomplish a couple things here with the update. One of the areas are going to be looking at the geographical locations in town and taking a look at the standards, particularly when you look at design standards. As the council is aware, but maybe for members in the audience or listening at home, currently when you look at the commercial districts for the city, and in particular the corridor areas in the city, they're subject to the city's design review requirements. So any new buildings typically built in those areas would be subject to receiving a design review permit from the Community Development Committee. What this committee and what the update is going to be looking at is areas of town to determine the appropriate design standards for town and comparing those. For instance, it's often been talked about in the city, is it appropriate to have the same design standards for the far edges of the community as it may be for the central business district? Those items will be looked at with the consultant on this as well. In addition, I think another goal, one of the goals of this review and update of the design manual is to bring a more objective process on it as well. And what they've talked about is a formalized scale, grading scale on it as well. So what we're hoping to have is a more straightforward, objective process is the key goals with the committee. But when we look at the agreement and a little bit of the specifics, we're just shy of $27,500 for the updates. Now, as a part of the agreement, there'll be 4 CDC workshops. There'll also be a community meeting, and there'll also be meetings with both CDC and City Council. So I think it's going to be a fair statement that there'll be plenty of community input on the design manual update as well. But in addition, it is important to note that if this resolution is passed this evening, we'd be looking at approximately 5 months for completion and hopefully adoption by the City Council of the new design manual. So in summary, Mr. Mayor, it is important to note what this resolution would do would approve the agreement of Shift Collective to update the city's design manual from the 3rd edition to the 4th edition. It is important to note that we are recommending approval this evening. And with that, that completes the staff's presentation on this item. We'd be more than happy to address any questions the mayor and council may have on this item.
All right, thanks, Mike. Can I get a motion for approval?
So moved. Support.
DeYoung, Hopkins, any discussion, questions? You must have done a good job, Mike. All right, all in favor, please say yes. Opposed, no. Mandy, please call the roll.
DeYoung,
Yes.
Hopkins,
Yes.
Spore,
Yes.
DeAnstruck.
Yes.
Motion passed. Resolution number 6355, entitled Resolution of Pella City Council approving final plat of Shady Brook Acres, plat number 2. Mike?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I'd be more than happy to explain this item. And once again, I'd like to direct everyone's attention to the big board for a presentation on this item. As Mayor DeWard stated, what this resolution would do is approve final plat for Shady Brook Acres, plat number 2. And up here on the big board, we do have a map of the area that we are talking about. Listed up here to the north is Neal Drive, 218th Avenue is over here. And as you can see, we have the city's soccer complex is located right over here. The plat area that we're talking about this evening is this red highlighted area, right, that's located right here. To the south would be Shady Brook, phase 1 or plat number 1 that we have. It is important to note that the application for the plat is being submitted this evening by Mr. Matt Deal on behalf of Refuge Brook Properties and by the property owner, Mr. Troy C. Camp, this evening as well. Now, as far as a little bit of background on this, the Shady Brook subdivision has had some stages of development. The original plat for the subdivision was approved by the Pella City Council in 2007. Now, when we talk about the plats this evening, and just to get the terminology straight for everybody, and the council's well aware of this, but maybe for members of the audience and those listening at home, when we use the term final plat, there's 2 types of plats that we usually consider at the city council level. One of them is the preliminary plat, and oftentimes the preliminary plat is the master game plan for the development, talks about the development as a whole, often addresses infrastructure requirements for the development. The final plat is what's used by the county for recording, and that's what we're considering this evening. The final plat is often done in phases for the development, such as what we have here is really the phase number 2 for the development. Now, as we talk about the final plat this evening, it's important to note that we are looking at 6 lots and 1 property outlot, and also that we do have some public infrastructure improvements that will be dedicated to the City of Pella that will be going over here very soon. So Mandy, let's go ahead, please. And I believe we've covered these first few bullet points up here as well. But it is important to note, as we consider the final plat this evening, one thing that we want, the city code requires anyway, is that the final plat, if you recall, preliminary plat's the master game plan for the development. It talks about the infrastructure for the development as well. City code requirements require the final plat to be in conformance with the preliminary plat. We believe that the final plat is in conformance with the approved preliminary plat as well, and that we also believe that the final plat meets the city's zoning code ordinances as well. So Mandy, let's go ahead, please. Now, as far as the city's comprehensive plan, it is important to note that we do believe that it does align with the city's comprehensive plan, particularly the future use land map that talks about designates the area for additional housing. In addition, when we look at the comprehensive plan and we talk about the need for additional housing, that was one of the items that was identified as a strategic priority for the city of Pella. So when we look at this preliminary plat, or final plat, we believe it is in conformance with the comprehensive plan in two aspects, both from a future use land use standpoint, as well as a strategic priority goal standpoint as well. So let's go ahead, Mandy. Now, listed up here on the big board in the slide is a summary of the public infrastructure for the development as well. Once they are constructed, they will be dedicated to the city of Pella on this. And so, Mandy, let's go ahead. Now, as far as in summary, when we talk about the final plat tonight, we believe that it meets all city code requirements, and we believe it also conforms to the city's comprehensive plan, and as a result, we are recommending approval this evening. And I would also like to mention as well that all the legal documents have been reviewed by the city attorney. In addition, the Planning and Zoning Commission did review this final plat at their June 28th meeting and unanimously approved the final plat that we are considering this evening. So once again, Mr. Mayor, we are recommending approval of the final plat. And with that, that concludes the staff presentation. We'd be more than happy to answer any questions the mayor and council may have on this item.
All right, thanks, Mike. Can I get a motion for approval?
Support.
Hopkins, Spore. Any questions, discussion?
Is Lot A is the street lot, right? That
Outlot A, Jerry Bidos, would you like to answer that question as far as Outlot A?
Outlot A is Troy Seacamp's other piece of property. We don't have his garage on that property.
okay? So I meant Lot A.
Lot
Is
A.
that between the?
That's the public right of way,
Right.
it looks like.
And then
correct, Jerry?
is it possible for future development to go east of that?
That, Lot A, it looks like is the street, it looks like.
Right.
No. Right.
Right here, I believe the question was
It-
for
it-
Lot
It's
can
A.
the extension of the street of Shady Brook Lane. It also will provide access to the parcel farther to the east,
Yeah.
across the Big Creek.
So that could be continue to develop eastward perhaps at some point in the future?
That is correct.
Okay.
Anything else? All right, then we'll vote. All in favor, please say yes. Opposed, no. Mandy, please call the roll.
Hopkins.
Yes.
Spore. Yes. DeYoung.
Yes.
Danstruck.
Yes.
Motion passed. Okay, moving on, resolution number 6356, entitled Resolution Approving and Authorizing Execution of an Economic Development Assistance Contract by and between the City of Pella, Vermeer Corporation, and Iowa Economic Development Authority. Mike?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I'd be happy to explain this item. For those following at home, I'm on slide number 11 this evening. And as Mayor DeWard stated, what this resolution would do is approve a contract with Vermeer Corporation and the Iowa Economic Development Authority. Now, a little bit of background on this. This contract actually that we're considering this evening with the state of Iowa really stems from 2018. As council is well aware, our community was struck by a tornado in 2018, and the Vermeer campus received significant damage as a result of the tornado. And I would say, and actually thankfully for the Vermeer staff and the actions that they took on this that day, there was no fatalities on the campus, and also for our public safety responders as well. They did a phenomenal job. But nevertheless, it caused significant damage in our community, and I believe Vermeer lost roughly 40% of their manufacturing capacity in our community as well. Now, thankfully, subsequent to the disaster that did occur, Vermeer did make a decision to rebuild within the community, and subsequently to that, the city did enter into an economic development agreement with Vermeer Corporation. The state of Iowa did as well back in 2018 to assist with the rebuild effort. Tonight's action as far as the new contract really stems from an amendment that we had previously approved from the city council level as well. And it is important to note that the contract this evening with the state is a requirement by the state of Iowa, and what it would allow is Vermeer Corporation to receive financial incentives totaling up to $2.2 million from the state's High Quality Jobs Program for the new parts distribution facility improvement, along with other campus improvements that Vermeer Corporation is proposing to do. So again, the city is required to be a contract to this agreement between Vermeer and the Iowa Economic Development Authority. Now, as far as our responsibilities under the contract, it is important to note that we are required to meet the required local match under the contract. In 2019, as we stated earlier, we did approve an economic development agreement which addressed the local match requirements for the contract. And subsequently, we also approved an amendment to that agreement that included the parts distribution facility as well. Now, overall, when you look at both of these additions and both of these actions by the City Council, the reason why we did this, did in both in 2019 and also recently, is when you look at the new buildings that are going to be rebuilt at the Vermeer campus, and when we look at the city's economic development agreements that we have, it's really based on tax abatement for the valuation increases associated with the new buildings over a 10-year period of time. So the thought was at the time, working with Vermeer on trying to structure a win-win for both the community and Vermeer Corporation, that Vermeer would not be penalized, or Vermeer Corporation would not be penalized for the valuation increases associated with the new buildings, because we believe that they will be higher than the original buildings that were destroyed with the tornado in 2018. A little bit about the mechanics of our agreement. What the agreement called for was levels or establishing the assessed valuation as if the tornado did not occur, and then Vermeer agreed to a 3% annual increase in their valuation through the year 2029 when the agreement expires. So any valuations that would be over that would be abated through a property tax abatement for that. And again, the overall premise was not to penalize Vermeer, but simply acknowledge what would happen if the tornado never occurred. And that was the thought with the original agreement. Subsequently, we added the new parts distribution facility agreement to the agreement. And the reason was that building was contemplated and actually planned by Vermeer to occur pre-tornado. It did not occur. It was actually delayed due to the tornado. So in looking at the new facility, that was subsequently added by the Pella City Council. Let's go ahead, please, Mandy. Now, as we stated earlier, we are required under the state of Iowa to be a party to this agreement. Vermeer Corporation needs a sponsor for this project, and the City of Pella is the sponsor and also party to the agreement. Now, ultimately, we have two main responsibilities under this agreement with the state of Iowa this evening. We're required to provide the required local match, which that has already been approved by the state of Iowa. And secondly, if we become aware of any material events on the project or with Vermeer Corporation, we're required to notify the Iowa Economic Development Authority as well. And so let's go ahead, Mandy. Now, I believe we covered most of this earlier on this, but once again, when we look at the city's development agreement with Vermeer Corporation, it was intended to assist Vermeer Corporation with the rebuild efforts within the community, and also it was necessary to allow Vermeer corporations to receive state financial incentives through the state of Iowa through the High Quality Jobs Program on this as well. And again, the agreement was structured to look like what would have Vermeer's assessed valuation been had the tornado not occurred. And then it was also a strong effort not to penalize Vermeer for any increased valuations on new buildings that took place of the original buildings that were destroyed as a part of the tornado. Once again, those valuations were established on January 1st, 2020 over a 10-year period of time. They'll increase by 3%. The last valuation that this takes place on is actually January 1st, 2029. So in summary, Mr. Mayor, this agreement has been reviewed by the city's legal counsel, and staff is also recommending approval this evening. And we realize that was a pretty detailed explanation of this agreement that we're considering this evening. So we'd be more than happy to answer any questions the mayor and council may have on this item.
All right, thanks, Mike. Can I get a motion for approval?
So moved. Support.
Anstra, DeYoung. Questions, discussion?
I just had a question on that last bullet point on about the increasing 3% annually through January 1 of 29. On the brand new parts center building, is there gonna be a base amount for that increases 3%? Because, you know, that building will be up there several years before 29 hits. Or is that 3% only on pre-parts building?
In pre-parts building, so the thought was that was a part of, was actually planned before the tornado hits. The base valuation does not change with the new building. That will be just in addition to.
Okay.
So,
Then on January 1 of 2030, then is the year after that, when the assessor, then is it whatever the market value is at that time?
that's the agreement.
Okay.
So whatever the market value is, whatever the Marion County assessor assesses the property at, that's the valuation from that point forward.
Anything else?
I'm delighted they chose to rebuild Pella.
Yeah. All right, we'll vote then. All in favor, please say yes. Opposed, no. Mandy, please call the roll.
DeAnstruck?
Yes.
DeYoung?
Yes.
Hopkins?
Yes.
Ford?
Abstain.
Uh-oh.
I believe we have a passage on it. It's my understanding it was an abstention due to a potential conflict of
Correct.
interest.
So
Yes.
we're
Yep,
okay, it's
we're okay.
passed then?
It passes.
Okay. Motion passed. All right, moving on, resolution number 6357, entitled Resolution Approving 3-Year Farm Lease Agreement. Mike?
I guess, Mr. Mayor, once again, I'd like to direct everyone's attention to the big board. And what we have here this evening is a proposed farm lease for, this is actually for 12.5 tillable acres of ground that the city owns at Pella Sports Park. It is important to note, we do have a map of the area up here, and I believe the leased area is this red highlighted area up here on the big board that we have that is currently city property. We did conduct a bid letting on October 20th of this year, and we only received one bid, and that was from Mr. John Bruxford for $260 per acre, which we believe was within market for farm rentals in Marion County. In fact, the average Marion County rent was in 2021 was at $220 per acre. So what staff is recommending is approval of a 3-year lease to Mr. John Bruxford for a total contract price of just at $9,750. And so with that, I'll be more than happy to answer any questions the mayor or council may have on this item.
All right, thanks, Mike. Can I get a motion for approval?
So moved.
Beyond Hopkins, any discussion?
Is that the extent of the land that we own there on the east side of the road, or is there more?
Denny or Jeanette, did you ask?
There's a sliver up north, on the northeast corner, but that's the bulk of it, that's on the east side of Coastline Drive.
And the sliver up north was intended, it's my understanding, to accommodate potential future extension of University Street
Correct.
in the future.
Property lines are on there in that real light blue.
Oh, yeah.
Really light
Mhm.
going on. The little triangle there, but it's down in the wetland.
And there's no near-term plans for this parcel?
We don't believe so, not within the next 3 years, anyway, on the crop lease.
Depending on little tag soccer?
Keeps expanding, we might need to use it sooner. How many kids are in the program? We're in the program this fall.
We have 470 in our program, and the Iowa Rush South, I think, have another 260.
No wonder there was a traffic jam out there every Saturday morning. All right, anything else? Okay, all in favor, please say yes. Opposed, no. Mandy, please call the roll.
DeYoung?
Yes.
Hopkins?
Yes.
Ford?
Yes.
DeAnstruck?
Yes.
Motion passed. Resolution number 6358, titled Resolution Approving Change Order Number 3 with WRH Incorporated for the wastewater treatment plant 2019 upgrades. Mike?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, once again, I'd like to direct everyone's attention to the big board for a presentation on this item. For those following at home, I'm on slide number 14. And as Mayor DeWard stated, what we're considering this evening with this resolution is approval of change order number 3 with WRH for improvements to the city's wastewater treatment plant. It is important to note that overall, the treatment plant upgrades that we are performing down there currently were necessary to meet the Iowa Department of Natural Resources' new permitting or discharge limits on there as well. And so in other words, it's tied to our permit requirements at the plant. So when we look at the contract as a whole, keep in mind that these are state regulations that we're trying to meet with enhanced discharge requirements. Now, overall, the good news is tonight's change order, we're actually looking at an overall deduction of just shy of $12,804. We do have a summary of the various change order components here that we have, but overall, the net decrease is right around $12,800. Mandy, let's go ahead, please. Now, a little bit about the background on the contract summary. We started off with an original contract summary, contract of $5,998,000. We actually had some change orders that were previously approved. If council were to approve this change order tonight, we'd have the total revised contract of $6,056,720.83. And once again, the key takeaway this evening, this contract or this change order is actually a deduction of just over $12,800. So, and finally, I'd also like to point out that the change order does not modify the substantial completion date of the project, which is still scheduled for November of this year. And with that, Mr. Mayor, we're more than happy to answer any questions the mayor or council may have on this item.
All right, thanks, Mike. Can I get a motion for approval? Hopkins, Spore, any discussion? It will be done by the 9th.
We're already meeting all the permits and parameters that were set forth by DNR to cause this. I think there's a lot of, this time of year, it's hard to receive a few of those things, so we'll either accept it or extend it a little bit for other reasons. But for the most part, yeah, structurally, we're about there.
Is this
Important part is
project,
we're meeting DNR.
is this project at a point a person could do a visit without being a pain in the neck?
Maybe in a couple of weeks.
Okay, I'm dying to take a look.
Yeah, that grass, I haven't been out there for a couple of weeks myself. Without grass, some of those areas, it's just, you're gonna slip slide around and not get very close to this stuff.
Anything else? Okay, we'll vote. All in favor, please say yes. Opposed, no. Mandy, please call the roll.
Hopkins,
Yes.
Spore,
Yes.
DeYoung,
Yes?
DeAnstruck.
Yes.
Motion passed. Moving on to ordinances. Ordinance number 99910, entitled, an ordinance amending the zoning ordinance of the City of Pella, Iowa by conditionally amending the boundaries of the R3 district to include the property generally located south of Boss Landon Drive at Utrecht Lawn, and directing the planning and zoning director to note the ordinance number and date of this change on the official zoning map. And this is our third reading of this ordinance. Mike?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I'd be happy to explain this item. Tonight's action or request comes to us from Ray Property Management, and the key terminology that we want to explain tonight, this is actually a conditional rezoning application. What that means is the applicant is voluntarily removing uses and agreeing to other conditions imposed by the City of Pella. As we consider the action tonight, specifically what we're looking to do is rezone the property from A1 agricultural to R3 multifamily residential. And again, the key thing is conditional, which means some of the uses that are normally allowed in R3 are being removed this evening. In addition, there's some additional requirements that the developer has agreed to voluntarily submit to the City Council's consideration this evening. Now, when we look at the location of the property, just to orientate everyone, Boss London Drive is located right here. It's this yellow highlighted area that we have located right in here. It's right again, 2.5 acre parcel. The Grand Stay Hotel and Suites is located right over here. So let's go ahead, please, Mandy. Now, as we stated, the property is currently zoned A1, and anytime you consider rezoning action, it's always important to look at the city's current zoning map and look at the proposed rezoning district that is being proposed, and also make sure that we have, not make sure, but it's always a good idea to look to see if there's in close proximity other zoning districts that would be zoned similar to this. So again, we're starting off with an A1 zone property. And as you can see, there's a number of R3 zone properties that are near to the subject matter property that we are considering this evening. And that's important to note because in our review of this matter, we did not note any spot zoning issues associated with this request as well. And again, that's just simply because there's numerous R3 zone properties currently in existence that are near to this property. Well, let's go ahead, please, Mandy. Now, as far as the proposed use that we are considering this evening, once again, it is a conditional use this evening. And the R3 zoning overall, when we look under the city zoning code, it's intended primarily for multifamily housing with this. And it also permits some non-residential uses for development in mixed-use neighborhoods as well. Now, in our review of the matter, and once again, the developer has voluntarily agreed to conditions on this, some of the items that have been removed from where normally allowed under R3 zoning are listed up here. These items are allowed. In addition, we have additional uses which are not allowed as well. And once again, what we're left with is really basically single-family and two-family houses, and I believe also single-family attached. And the ultimate goal with this rezoning request is to lower the density on the parcel as well. And the reason why we had this is we feel, in looking at the land use compatibility matrix in the city's comprehensive plan, that a lower density amount would also blend in well with the existing neighborhood, and the developer also had plans for that as well. So once again, all these uses that have been removed have the developer has voluntarily agreed to this as well. In addition, we also have some additional types C and B screening requirements for the development. And finally, we'd also like to mention that we do have design standards for the buildings to be constructed on the property as well. And Mandy, let's go ahead. I believe it's further explained. Well, maybe not. With the design standards, it's my understanding that the design standards are the same as the Boston covenants that are in the existing neighborhood. And again, when we look at the use removals, design standards, screening requirements, what we're really trying to do is strive to create a land use compatibility win-win with the developer and also the existing property owners that abut and are adjacent to the property as well. And this ties in nicely to our comprehensive plan. When we look at the city's comprehensive plan, it is important to note that it does identify for housing on this as well. The future use land map identifies the property for medium density residential and parks that we have located they're immediately around the area as well. So when we look at the city's comprehensive plan, what the developer is proposing and considering the density requirements as well, we believe that when you compare this parcel to other parcels that are in the vicinity, that basically the parcel is compatible from a land use standpoint. And so again, when we also recommend conditions on this as well, again, what we're trying to do is we're trying to strive for a win-win and a land use compatibility issues, not potential issues, but trying to address any potential issues between the proposed development and also the existing property owners as well. In summary, we believe that this development will be compatible with the existing neighborhood. It is also important to note that housing has been identified as a key need of the city as well. So when we look at this development, we believe that it hits a key strategic goal of the city's comprehensive plan, which is additional housing for the community. So in summary, based on our review, looking at the land use compatibility matrix, considering the key strategic goal of the development, we believe the development aligns in its conformance with the city's comprehensive plan. Well, let's go ahead, please, Mandy. And again, I believe what we have up here is, once again, is the city's comprehensive plan with it. And again, the subject matter is in purple here. So let's go ahead, please, Mandy. Now, in summary, Mr. Mayor, it is important to note that we believe that the rezoning request presented this evening aligns with the city's comprehensive plan. We also believe that the conditions associated with the rezoning request will allow the developer to meet any potential land use and address any potential land use compatibility issues that may exist. And as a result, we are recommending approval of this request submitted this evening. And finally, we'd like to mention the Planning and Zoning Commission did consider this matter at their September 27th meeting, and they unanimously approved the ordinance that we are considering this evening. So with that, that concludes the staff presentation. We'd be more than happy to answer any questions the mayor and council may have on this item.
All right, thanks, Mike. Can I get a motion for approval?
So moved.
DeYoung, Spore, discussion. Or I know we're going to get an abstention here. Is that going to be okay?
We believe as long as the abstention is due to a personal conflict of interest, then it just
Okay.
simply removes Councilmember Hopkins from the
All right.
council vote total.
All right.
So the answer is, if it was 3 votes, then the ordinance would pass.
All right. Anybody got anything else? All right, let's vote. All in favor, please say yes. Opposed, no. Mandy, please call the roll.
DeYoung.
Yes.
Spore.
Yes.
DeAnstruck.
Yes.
Hopkins.
Same conflict of interest. Motion passes. Now we
Move
need
to
a motion.
adopt.
No, thank you.
Support.
We have a motion to adopt ordinance number 999, DeYoung and Bandstra. Any discussion? All in favor, please say yes. Opposed, no. Mandy, please call the roll.
DeYoung.
Yes.
Bandstra.
Yes.
Hopkins.
Abstain, conflict.
Spore. Yes.
Motion passed. Okay, moving on, abstract of bills number 2090. Can I get a motion for approval?
Move to approve and issue warrant.
DeYoung, Spore, any questions on a long list of bills we saw? All right, then we'll vote. All in favor, please say yes. Opposed, no. Mandy, please call the roll.
DeYoung.
Yes.
Spore. Yes. Bandstra.
Yes.
Hopkins.
Yes.
Motion passed. Okay, any council members have any other business you'd like to see addressed this evening? All right, any members of the public have any other business that they would like to see addressed this evening? If so, please come forward. State your name and address. Try to limit your comments to 3 minutes.
My name is John Butler, reside at 406 Franklin Street here in Pella. And I just want to say something, Mr. Mayor. I appreciate your rundown last week, or the last meeting, of projects started, completed, and in process. I thought that was beneficial. I think that probably should be listed on the website so everybody could see that and keep that in mind. To illustrate that, we moved to Bloomington, Illinois in 1998. We lived there for 16 years. So many of you in the room might know that's the headquarters of State Farm. I'm sure somebody sent money there. State Farm in about 2012 decided that they could not attract enough people to work at Bloomington, Illinois. So they proceeded to build regional or sub-headquarters, whatever they call them, in Phoenix, Dallas, and Atlanta. And the downside of that, Bloomington, Illinois, or the State Farm had about 16,000 employees in town, a town of about 80,000 people. So they were big. And people retired early. Some people moved to new locations. Some people didn't get offered. Anyway, State Farm stopped being an engine of growth for the city of Bloomington, which we saw that as a slowdown in development there. So the challenges that you have here in Pella are many and similar. And I just want to say that if we're not growing, and it's a balancing act, I know it is, it's a balance to grow at the right pace and the right things. But if you're not growing, you're shrinking. So we got to keep growing. Nothing ever stays the same. I remember somebody said lightning never strikes the same place twice. Well, once lightning strikes that place, it ain't the same place again if it gets hit again. So appreciate your efforts on that. I just want you to know that. And just as long as, just keep telling us, so this is why we're doing this, or this is why we're doing that. And it is a big challenge because Pella's about 1/10 the size of Bloomington normal. And even there, we had challenges of keeping the right kind of employees coming into, as employers need more and more technical people. Technical people like to have opportunities to go to other opportunities. So it is a challenge. So thank you.
Really appreciate your comments. Thanks a lot.
And if I may, I'd like to reinforce those comments. We recently became aware of a community called Columbus, Indiana. It's south of Indianapolis, and it is the home and worldwide headquarters of Cummins Engines. And from what we understand, Cummins has invested huge in that community. It's about 4 times the size of Pella, for the very same purpose, attract and retain people. And my wife and I plan to head there later in the week and check that out to see if there's something we might learn.
Anybody else?
name is Michael Roberts. I'm with the Marion County Express and Marion County Tribune. Address is 1249 West Larson Suite B as in boy in Knoxville, Iowa. Currently looking for an office space over here in Pella as well. As some of you may or may not know, we are expanding our weekly publication, our subscription paper that we started almost 2 years ago. And just want to make everybody aware that we are here. We're planning on staying. Steve Woodhouse is back on board with me again. And a familiar name in sports, Perry Bell, is also with us. So any questions, I'll stick around afterwards, but looking forward to working with the city.
Thank you. Anyone else? All right, so Mr. Butler's discussion segues well into what I wanted to say tonight. As he mentioned at the last city council meeting, I spent a fair amount of time discussing a lot of the projects that are going on. I invited Stan and White from GenLink and RDP to come and talk about the family's involvement and Pella corporate family's involvement in a lot of these projects. And I thought Stan did a really good job of conveying the thoughts and the desires and the purposes of why they do those things. And I got to tell you that since I've been mayor, and it's not even been 2 years, but this generated more interest than anything I've said or anything we've talked about. I literally cannot go anywhere without somebody coming up and telling me, hey, I heard that update and thank you. And in fact, today I was walking, and you'd be surprised how often this does happen to me, but a pickup pulled up beside where I was, window come down, and hey, Mayor, come here. And they mentioned this. And so Stan, I think Stan did a really good job. And what I liked about how he ended his thing is he gave people, because there was so much misinformation out there that we were trying to clear it up. He told people where his office was, and he said, if you want to know more, if you want to argue, if you want to debate what we're doing, come to my office. Well, I talked to Stan today just to be sure, and I asked him who came, how many people came to his office. Well, no one in there will be surprised. No one showed up. People tend to, talk big when they're pounding out letters on their computer. Anyway, so I want to do that again tonight related to our facilities, our city facilities. So indulge me for a few minutes. I don't think, I guess after last time, KNIA kept running it, and I found out it was 37 minutes long, so that might be a little too long, but maybe it won't take. But before we leave that, there was a letter that went out to certain people over this last weekend. I found out about it. I was up at Dyke watching Pella Christian play football, but I got it texted to me. A letter mailed out to, I don't know who all, but a few people, pretty much rehashing everything that had been said earlier, that our discussion at the end of the meeting had taken care of. And so I don't want to go back and rehash, but there's 3 things I want to say about this letter. Number one, it wasn't signed by any individual. It was signed by concerned citizens concerned for the future of Pella. So I don't know who it is. I don't know who it was. So if anybody gets those types of letters, they should go right into the recycle bin, because if people aren't going to sign their name to it, they're not really too convicted about what they're trying to tell you. I read it because I'm in there a lot, and so I thought I should read it. That's the first thing. Throw those things away if people don't have the guts to tell you who they are when they're going to make all kinds of false accusations and those things. One thing I found pretty humorous in there, and I want to share that with you. There's a sentence in here that says, talking about Stan and myself and Pella Corp, and it said, but neither person, when they were talking about us, but neither person mentioned that Mayor DeWard was elected courtesy of GenLink and Van Wyck. So number one, GenLink didn't vote because they're a corporation, and you have to be an individual, a citizen of Pella to be able to vote. Whether Stan voted for me or not, I don't know. I've never asked him. But for discussion's sake, let's say he did. okay? Well, I got 1,614 votes in the last election, so Stan's vote didn't really tip the election into my favor. That's 70.85% of the votes that were cast. So, Stan voting for me didn't tip the election. So Jen Link and Stanton White didn't elect me. The citizens of Pella elected me. I thought it was kind of a interesting statement. And the third thing that I want to say about that letter is on Saturday morning I received an email from Dr. Bob Leonard from KNIA, KRL, and he was concerned whether I'd seen the letter or not, or heard about the letter or not. But in his email he offered to me, he said, we of course don't know who wrote the letter, so if whoever wrote the letter, if you're here or if you're listening, Dr. Bob has put an offer out there. He will give us live airtime for me and you to debate all of this issues in this letter. Trust me, I would like nothing more than that happen. So, whoever wrote it, if you want to sit down with myself and the KNIA radio station with Dr. Bob as the moderator, and we have a debate about this, I'm ready anytime. I'll make the time. Okay? Okay, so now I want to talk about our facility, our city facilities, because there's a whole lot of chatter again going on about things, and I want to make sure that I set the record straight and that people understand where we're at. Before I do that, I want to describe three types of people for you that I'm going to refer to when I talk about this. There's a group of people. This isn't a large group of people, but there's people that look at things and they look at the world around them and they don't see it for what it is. They see it for what it could be. They see a building. They see it for what that building could be. They see the world around them, and they don't just look at what it is, but they see what it could be. And those kind of people have ideas. They have vision. They have those kind of things. And a small percentage of them follow up with that vision or that idea. And they put together a plan to make that happen. Those people are called leaders. Okay? There's another probably largest group of people that some people have visions and have ideas, but they'll go to somebody in that first group, leaders, and say, I think this would be kind of cool to do. We should maybe do this. I think it would help. But I don't want to do it. Would you take it and do it? Okay? Or there's other people that just don't pay enough attention to what's going on, and the apathy. They don't care. I call that group followers. And then there's another small percentage of people I'll call, I've tried to figure out good words, naysayers, agitators. There's always a small group of people that when leaders try to do things, they're just waiting to pounce. Okay? They see the world, they see it is, and they say, it's it, this is it. It's not going to change, this is how it is. In fact, often they'll look back and say, boy, I wish it was the old days. Sure would like to go back to the old days. So you got this group of agitators that try to sabotage everything a leader tries to do. Anybody that's been in a leadership position, and I've watched and I've been involved enough, I've watched enough it happens every time. And so all of that is going on here. So from a city facility standpoint, in August of 2018, and I was not part of the city administration at that time, in August of 2018, council approved a service contract with Short Elliott Hendrickson to do a facility needs assessment for the City of Pella. That was supposed to cover the next 20 years, out to 2040. Okay? So, for whatever reason, Mark, you were on the council at the time. I assume that there was a real effort or discussion by the city council at that time to say, hey, we need to evaluate some city facilities and figure out what we're going to need. Absolutely. I assume that's why it was done for the next 20 years. So 20 years, when you say that, sounds, oh yeah, well, we got plenty of time to do that. Well, it's already 2021. If you don't get on some of these things, then suddenly you're behind the eight ball. And so I think it's important that we get moving on some of these things. So, on July 2 of 2019, again, I was not involved in city administration at the time, they came back with their report, okay? And they were instructed to perform building condition assessments, meet with city staff, applicable boards, focus group, key stakeholders for each facility to develop space needs, perform an analysis of the usage of the community center, which will include meeting with 4 key stakeholder groups, develop concept building design layout options, including a preliminary estimate of probable costs for future growth or expansion, and prepare a written report outlining the items listed above. Upon completion, the final report findings will be presented to the City Council. So, on July 2, that report was finished. It was presented to the City Council. In November of 2019, there was an election. I got elected as mayor. Those 3 guys over there got elected as city council members. And so there was pretty drastic different makeup of the leadership of the city there. Anyway, so the list of things that were on there for them to look at was the community center, city hall, the library, the public safety complex, electric, telecommunication utility, and public works. All of those city facilities were part of this study done by the consulting group with recommendations on there, and the report is 100 and some pages long. It's pretty exhaustive, and it talks about all of those facilities and what through their work they saw as needs in those. So I'll give you the good news first. One of the things on the list was a new electrical telecommunication utility, because at that point it was just approved to put in the telecom utility, and so there was a new building going to be constructed that would be electric and telecommunication. That is done. Okay, we have a new building down on Prairie Street, south end of town, just north of Truman Road. That part of it is done, so we can check that one off. Okay, so the next one I want to talk about is the community center, which has been obviously a lot of hot discussion since we've been involved. I first want to say something about the Vanzanis, because they fit very well into the leadership people I was talking about. They look at that community center and they don't see what it is. They see what it could be. And they've gone the extra step to formulate a plan. They've spent tremendous amount of time. They spent tremendous amount of money to put a plan together. That's what leadership is. And they've done it very well. For their vision for that place, they have done it very well. That is leadership. Now, unfortunately for them, they can't go alone on it. Although I would like to offer tonight in this public meeting, if you would like to have that building for 2 years and do whatever you want to do to it, we'll give it to you. And then if you want to give it back to us, we'll take over the responsibility to maintain it and operate it. And
I'm buying my Powerball tickets ready. and I'll follow up on that if we
yeah. Okay, so the other thing I need to say about the community center, I think the things that are needed now are the same things that have been needed for at least 20 years. Okay? I've been mayor for 1.5 years now, or a little over 1.5 years, and there's been, I've been kind of some arrows shot that why haven't you done something about it yet? Well, like I said, this thing has been talked about for a long time. Mark could testify. I know he mentioned the other night in the forum that 10 years ago he was on a committee. Nothing has been done. So I hope that helps indicate that it's not an easy decision to what to do with it. Okay? So in the course of this study, so some of the key things that came back from the consulting firm, and they went and talked to people, they said the focus group interviews conducted by the consultant identified a need in excess of 45,000 square feet of space for a community center. And it's important to note that the existing community center has the ability to provide 20,000 square feet of space, and that doesn't include the theater area. Okay, so there's 20,000 square feet there without the theater. So they came up with two options at the time. Number one was to renovate the existing facility at a cost of $10.3 million at that time. Now, I would hate to guess what the cost would be now with the way construction. Or the other option that they listed in their report was a new community center for $14.5 million, and it was going to be a 47,000 square foot community center located by the aquatic center. That would include 2 gymnasiums, 1 large meeting room, and new council chambers. In addition, the new facility would be able to accommodate the city's existing art and recreational activities which occur at the current location. So there was a new center. No one liked that. I haven't found one person that said I like that. Number one, the location is terrible, in my opinion, and I agree with everybody that said that. Number two, there's no stage for performing anything there. And number three, it's not near big enough for what we need. Okay? So no one liked that. And so, but that was what was out there. And I don't know what discussion any previous council had about it. I saw a diagram. I saw just kind of a high level concept of what it might look like. But no, like I said, no one I talked to. So the things that I've heard from constituents on this issue is, number one, location is critical. A community center, just by the very nature of the word, community center means center of town. So location is important. What we've discussed, and we've had a few times we've had a presentation about it. We talked about it. We had a specific policy and planning session where we talked about it. And the things that I heard were, yes, it's the location, and the current community center just will not meet our needs from an arts and recreation standpoint. And so we needed to separate. Just needed to separate the art part of it to the recreation part of it. So when you say that once, then that naysayer group, you know what they do right away? They start trying to divide the whole big group. So they start putting false stuff out there to try to agitate people. They don't care about the arts. They're just thinking about recreation. I have not heard one person up here say one time that they didn't fully support the arts. In fact, Dave, he's an old actor with Union Street Players. I mean, he's an art guy. His wife is an art guy, Liz. Everybody has said the arts are critically important to our community. Recreation is, but the two need to be separate. So it's not, nobody's picking sides here. We can, the beauty of it is we can do both and we're going to do both. So let's drop this it's art versus rec, because it doesn't have to be and it's not going to be. So the discussion up here we had, I heard, and if you pay attention to how we work, I never vote on anything. It takes 4 council members to vote on something. So when we had our discussion that one night, I heard 2 council members adamantly saying we need to do the proposed addition that the Vizantis put together. We got to do it now. I heard 4 other people not quite so sure, and they said, before we make that decision, let's look at something new. So we decided, and we instructed council at that time, to hire a consultant to give us a high-level concept of a potential new art building, performing center, whatever you want to call it. And so, but now the naysayers and the rabble-rousers, I saw an email that was sent to the fire department and to everybody else that said, do you know that there's a plan to build a new art center, or a performing arts center on the site of the old church, and that the fire department and the police department and public, or everybody else's safety complex is going to have to move, is going to move to Truman Road? There's no plan. If there is, I haven't seen it. So that's how they just want to create chaos. So, and in fact, I know this for a fact, on November 8th, that's the first day that this consulting group we hired to give us a concept of a new performing arts center on next Monday. They are going to start meeting with, I'm meeting with them next Monday. They're meeting with council. They're meeting with the and the other thing about the email that was sent said there's a plan. And do you know that nobody asked the fire department? Really? To me, that's offensive. You think we're going to put a plan together to move the fire department? Never ask the firemen? Really? You think we're going to do that? You know what the problem is? Some of them believe that. They believe that we would do that. We'd put a plan together to move the fire department, never ask the firemen. Well, that's not going to happen. So, anyway, I'm sorry, but some of this stuff gets a little irritating. So, starting next Monday, the consultant is going to meet with a whole host of people. Potentially, if we wanted to build a new performing arts center, with location being important to us, as of last Friday, we own the site where the old Second Christian Reformed Church is. That's a potential downtown site where we could put a new one. Does that mean we would have to get rid of the safety? I don't know. They haven't showed me anything yet, so I don't know. So if they come back and they show us a plan that requires us to move the safety complex, I'm sure going to talk to the firemen and the police and everybody else and say, what about you guys? Everybody's going to have input. So this idea that there's a plan out there is ridiculous, and that no one consulted anybody else. So that's where we're at on the community center. I know it's time, the clock is ticking, and people are impatiently waiting, but I think we're doing our job to find out for sure what our options are. And we will make a decision, I promise you, before my term is up at the end of 2024, I guess. Is that what it will be? Yeah, 2024. We will have made some decision what we're going to do with the community center. Yeah, end of 23. Yeah. Okay. So anyway, we will make a decision. And the other thing, we put out there a concept plan for a recreation center. Again, just a high level, based on what they had heard and what I've heard from the hoops clubs and stuff about how much gyms we had, feeling like we need a new indoor pool. I don't know if any of you go to the indoor pool or not, but it's not a very welcoming place to go swimming. So we put together this plan. And let me let you in on a little bit of a secret. So we had this idea about a community center, or a rec center. So where can we put it? That was the first question. Where could we possibly put it? So I thought about different places, and then I thought, hey, maybe the sports park. We've got 105 acres out there. So guess what we did? Guess who the first people, before we said one word to anybody else, the first people we had a meeting with? The Fields of Our Futures guys. Because they put time and money and effort into building that sports park. And I would not put something out there without their blessing. So they were the very first, Mike and I and Jeanette, got in a meeting with those guys and we said, hey, what about this? What about an indoor rec facility out there at our sports park? Well, the response from them was an immediate enthusiastic yes, 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 because that's what we talked about when we built the sports park. But I hope that's an indication that we're not going to do anything without talking to people and taking into account all these things that have been going on for a long time, and getting buy-in and getting input from people. So that's where we're at on the community center. I don't know for sure how long the consultant is going to take to give us a report, but when we get the report, we're going to sit down, we're going to show it, we're going to discuss it in public meetings, however many it takes, before any kind of decisions will be made. So again, Patty, the offers are.
Yeah, well, and I just wanted to say that on the Friends renovation plan, that would provide 53,000 square feet.
Yeah, so there's an addition there, yes.
And complete handicap access, including to the Heritage Gym, which would be not separate. And we've supported a rec center separate from the community center from the very beginning, a sensible one. And I think out at the field is wonderful. And I'm pushing it because I'm a bitch. But
no comment. I just like to also make one clarification. And while I appreciate the call out, but the plan was put together by the Friends of the Pella Community Center, which is a lot of people in conjunction with Shummer Associates, an architecture firm out of Des Moines that specializes in historic preservation. So I appreciate the call out to us, but it's a lot more people whose ideas were incorporated into this.
Yeah, and I know that, but you two have been the face of it, and I know how much time and effort you put in. So I appreciate, I just wanted to make sure.
And I also want to point out is when you first took office, we stopped you on the street.
Yeah.
He always looks like he's going to throw up when I jump out of the car. and I said we would be more than happy to, because putting these things together is difficult, and we'd be more than happy to help you on the rec center and be supportive of a sensible rec center, because Pella obviously needs the gyms, the rec center. Okay?
Yeah, so then the other things that I said were on the list: City Hall, the library. There's in this report, and it's available. Is it online or?
It's available at City Hall, Mr. Mayor.
Okay.
We certainly could put the facilities report on the city's website as well, too.
Yeah, so if you're interested in seeing what kind of the concepts were for expansion, and then also the public safety complex. And there was, when the city bought Second Christian Reformed Church, they bought it in two phases. I think July 1 of 2019, part of it was bought, and I think a lot of that had to do with parking, an opportunity. You know, why did they buy it? Why did the council at that time decide to buy it? I think parking was kind of a big part of that purchase, and it's strategically located downtown. Who knew at the time what else might happen? I don't think although there was a high level that I've seen drawing of perhaps a ambulance, what was it called?
A new ambulance station.
New ambulance fire station, maybe on that site. So that's something else that's still possible on that site. And through all this discussion and consultant, we'll hopefully figure out what's best, okay? And so that's part of it. Now, so to wrap up here, because I've probably, in our Public Works building, I should mention, the forecasted space needs for that was an additional cold storage of 11,700 square feet. And that is in the budget to be done in 2023.
Yeah, I believe it's within the first.
Yeah, one thing you should understand, because I've also heard this, especially when we start talking about a rec center, that we're going to do that at the expense of infrastructure. That's not true. we take care of infrastructure needs in our budget process. And I know Mark mentioned it, but the city does a 3-year capital improvement budget. So I know in February and March, we'll have about 4 2.5-hour meetings about budget, and I know they'll make you fall asleep, but if you're interested, really interested in this stuff, that's where we talk about infrastructure. And so we're not going to sacrifice infrastructure to do any of these other projects. In fact, if you will notice, Neal Drive, that road is done. The Oostport Alley, which was a big project with a storm sewer and underground retention, is soon going to be done. And so we're systematically, because there's a lot of infrastructure issues under these streets, and I agree 100% the time to do it is when you can plan for it and not react to a disaster. And if there's one thing that keeps me awake at night, it's that some water main is going to break on Franklin Street, and Franklin Street's going to be closed for a month. That's not a good thought. So, but Denny is very capable of finding out what we need, prioritizing, and systematically those things are getting taken care of. We spend a lot of money, $1.5 million and up every year on those kinds of projects, and that will continue. That's in the budget. So the last thing I want to say is, with all this happening, this is 20 years to get all this done. And again, it seems like a lot, but a long time, but time marches pretty quickly. So you have to prioritize. And so, to me, in the current needs of this community is, if we talked about it, is housing and amenities, so that our companies can grow and attract the people that they need to stay here. And thank you for your example, because we have examples right here. When Maytag left Newton, what happened to Newton? So we've got to work with our companies, and the blessing that we have beyond almost any other community our size that I can think of is that our companies are willing to invest a lot of money in the community. Think about this. We are the real connection with our Pella Corporation right now is a great-grandson of the founder. I'll defy you to go out and find very many companies that are being, the connection to a community is down to the great-grandchildren. Doesn't happen very often. Vermeer Manufacturing is the CEO right now, is a grandson of the founder. So we are so unique, and we are so blessed. We just can never lose sight of that. So anyway, so we prioritize. So in my opinion, the arts and a new rec center, that's priority for me. I haven't heard, Chief hasn't been screaming at me, hey, we need a new police station. I haven't heard one word from the fire department about needing new fire. The ambulance is a different story at this point. The ambulance is its own nonprofit organization running their own service. There's discussions going on with the city right now about, maybe that potentially becomes a city department. So all that's happening. So we're going to focus on the arts and the rec for the next year and try to get somewhere. I want to have some plans in place by next year for both of those, and a plan of action, and so we can do. So that's my half-hour spiel on facilities. I apologize if I went too long, but the old football coach in me takes over sometimes. So take it for what it's worth. All right, so now we have to go into closed session. Does anybody in here want to stick around? We probably won't have any motions afterwards, so we're going to go into closed session, which means you all have to leave. or we have to go somewhere else, but I don't assume anybody's real interested in coming back. So, thanks for coming. Do I have a motion to enter into closed session pursuant to Iowa Code Chapter 388.9, Paragraph 1, to discuss marketing and pricing strategies or proprietary information of the city utility if its competitive position would be harmed by public disclosure, not required of potential or actual competitors, and if no public purpose would be served by such disclosure.
Support.
Hopkins swore. Any discussion? All in favor, please say yes. Opposed, no. Mandy, please call the roll.
Hopkins.
Yes.
Spore.
Yes.
DeYoung.
Yes.
Banstra.
Yes. All right, so we, there is no motion coming out of closed session, so I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Support.
Banstra, DeYoung, all in favor, please say yes. Opposed, no. Mandy, please call the roll.
Banstra.
Yes.
DeYoung.
Yes.
Hopkins.
Yes.
Spore.
Yes.
Motion passed. We are adjourned.